They're not good enough to start. They're not even good enough to play. But they do talk a good game. So come join Lou and Jose from the sidelines where all the best sports discussions happen anyway. Welcome in to the Benchwarmerz podcast.
Welcome into the program, everybody. I am Lou Ruggieri, that's Jose Ortiz, and this is the Benchwarmerz podcast. Wherever, whenever, and however you happen to be listening, we appreciate you taking some time out to spend it with us. We are going to try to make it worth your while, and I don't promise it often, but I think we're going to do it this week. Hopefully we've done it other weeks, but I think for sure this week, for sure. Big show coming up, hour 2, a little bit down the road. We have our favorite game, Make No Mistake or Give Me a Break, which is our true-false segments. Make some statements, and they're either outlandish and met with a give me a break, or they're very factual, and we say make no mistake. That's going to happen. We already have to, it's week 11. That's incredible. We have to make our week 11 picks and go over our week 10 picks and look forward to our sports betting segment, Put Your Money Where Your Mouth Is, where we recap how good or bad we're doing. I'm not sure what that is. We'll check in a little bit later with that. Coming up this hour, we actually have some non-NFL news to get to. There's a whole bunch of NBA stuff to talk about, and that's exciting because, well, the NBA is over, and it's already right back in our laps, and that's a good thing. You can follow us along, by the way, on the iHeartRadio podcasting app. We're on Amazon Podcasts. We're on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Twitter at the BW Pod, Facebook and Instagram. Yahoo is our email site. The Benchwarmerz podcast at yahoo.com, Benchwarmerz with a Z. And to start the show off, we have our top 5 news stories from the NFL in week 10. And actually, Jose, I know we don't do this, and I hate when shows do this and they talk about dumb stuff that no one cares about, but I actually wanted to mention something right off the bat that actually pertains to sports and our show all at the same time. I stumbled upon a podcast that is my new favorite podcast outside of course, the Benchwarmerz podcast. But all personal bias aside, I stumbled upon Ray Lewis has a podcast called Everyday Greatness. And let me just tell you, I am ready to run through a wall every time I listen to Ray Lewis. I wish that I could play on his team and just for one day, because I would be able to do everything. I wish he could be my training partner because I think I would set all kinds of personal records. So outside of spending time listening to the Benchwarmerz podcast, I wholeheartedly endorse and with no monetary compensation, Ray Lewis's Everyday Greatness podcast. It is fantastic.
I didn't know he had a podcast, but I'm not surprised that he's unbelievably inspirational. I can only imagine him yelling at you, like, if you were, doing a set, like, come on, one more, like just yelling at you and getting you fired up. Yeah, I actually thought, what's the name of the podcast again?
It's called Everyday Greatness. And the first show, and he wrote me, I'll tell you what, whoever produced that show, kudos to them, because their very first show on that series was Ray Lewis interviewing Deion Sanders. And let me just tell you, there are not 2 people on this planet that I would rather listen to more talk than Deion Sanders, Ray Lewis. It just phenomenal. Like, just invigorating, enthusiastic, heartwarming, motivating, just all positive, without being obnoxious, just top to bottom.
I'll check it out. Check it out.
Maybe we can get Ray Lewis on here and he can talk more about it. That'll be one of my goals. But yeah, anyway, side note. But it does pertain to sports. It also pertains to podcasting, which, we're part of in both of those accounts. So I thought it was a nice little crossover and a little suggestion considering we're, we have a once a week 2-part show. So if you're bored and you run out of things to listen to on the Benchwarmerz, you can always check out Ray's podcast too, because it's pretty good. Okay, onward. We have to get to the top 5 news stories in the NFL according to us. And jumping right off, number 1, and did you come up with this? Hail Murray. Was that you?
No, I can't. No, I can't take credit for that. It was too easy, first of all. Like, I would have come up with it had I not heard it first.
Okay.
But I did hear it on TV, and I was like, yes, Hail Murray.
Hail Murray. Kyler and the Cards pulled a huge win gigantic win over the Bills. After the Bills just embarrassed the Seahawks, the Cardinals division rival, the Seahawks last week, and the Cardinals, with 1 second to go, DeAndre Hopkins makes an impossible Hail Mary catch. And this game, I mean, it's tough to point to specific games sometimes that are pivotal turning points in the season, but I think that this one for the NFC West was a big time changing of, or at least the beginnings of the changing of the guard in the power.
I mean, it's first of all, just what an incredible play. Like I've watched that play probably 15 times in the last 24 hours. It was just, there's only a few quarterbacks who can make that throw, only a few wide receivers who can make that catch.
Yeah.
And it was just incredible. I feel bad for the Buffalo Bills because they were 1 second away from getting another marquee victory and kind of cementing themselves at the top of the AFC East. But now the Miami Dolphins are breathing down their necks. And you look at the NFC West, there's 3 6-3 teams.
Yeah.
This Thursday night coming up, it's Cardinals against the Seahawks in Seattle. So I as much as I want to say that the changing of the guard has started, I wouldn't be surprised if on Thursday all of a sudden the Seahawks wake up and win a game. So I'm just not really sure, but as far as changing of the guard or anything like that, but incredible win by the Cardinals. And if nothing else, whether it's a changing of the guard or not, they have proven to be an elite team in the NFL right now that on any given Sunday can beat a really good team. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if the Cardinals could happen to beat the Chiefs. I don't think they play the Chiefs, but could the Cardinals beat the Chiefs? Absolutely. They can beat anyone because when you have two great players like that and a defense that's playing better, you have a chance.
I will say I was a little disappointed in Patrick Peterson. I don't know if he was just showing his age or not, but I watched Cole Beasley and Stephon Diggs both embarrass him. Cole Beasley, by the way, 11 receptions, 109 yards, and a touchdown.
Cole Beasley is really underrated. Cole Beasley is underrated. I think we forgot. We remember him from the Cowboys and not getting a lot of targets. And then when he left the Cowboys, he said something about how Jerry Jones or whomever dictates who the ball goes to, which I guess that's normal. And then he went to the Bills and they started not to the Bills. To the Bills. He started getting targeted. So, yeah. Yeah,
and Stephon Diggs looks like a home run for the Bills. He's just an incredible receiver. And Kyler Murray, I mean, he did all right. 245 yards passing, only one passing touchdown and one interception. He had 61 rushing yards and tacked on 2 more rushing touchdowns. I mean, he reminds me of he looks like Darren Sproles with Randall Cunningham's arm. It's just incredible. See, how fast he gets up to top speed. It's like 3 steps and he's at top speed.
What I was thinking is if you somehow combined Steve Young with Michael Vick, that's where you would get Kyler Murray. He may not be quite as fast as he might not be as fast as Michael Vick, but he's very quick. He's shifty. He never takes a big hit, and he's incredibly accurate. He's a great thrower. He's a pocket passer who happens to be able to run really, really fast.
Well, that's why. Yeah, I would say that that's almost doing a disservice to him with Michael Vick because Michael Vick was not a very accurate thrower.
Well, that's why I threw in Steve Young. That's why I threw in Steve Young.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, that's all. That's why the combination came in. Because he doesn't have necessarily the same athleticism of Michael Vick, but he's way more athletic than Steve Young was. But it's not, and he has that same level of accuracy and arm strength. He's like looking like just a perfect quarterback. I don't really know what you're going to do if he keeps getting better.
Yeah, I mean he looks like he's got all the tangibles and all the intangibles. And I mean, it also helps when you sign one of the best, the top 3 receivers in the league in the offseason. And how's that looking, Houston? That's not looking too good right now. The Texans are not in our top 5 news stories, but I mean, just by virtue of how good DeAndre Hopkins looked, it sort of makes the Texans look even worse than they already are. Fun fact, the only 2 victories that the Texans have this year are both against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Not that that's a news story. Why you got to beat up on the Jaguars? Why you got to beat up on the Jaguars?
I
mean, they did good this week. Hats off to them. We'll get to that later. All right. Moving on. Good for Kyle Murray. The Cards are a legit team, and so good for them. The second news story in our top 5 stories from the NFL in Week 10, Drew Brees, unfortunately, out at least 3 weeks with broken ribs and a collapsed lung. He got pancaked in what I think was a roughing the passer penalty, at least, thankfully. But they took on a decimated 49ers team headed by, Nick Mullins, who I will say the 49ers looked competent in the first half. I mean, they looked better. Well, anybody looked better than the Bucs did last week against the Saints, but they came out, they ran the ball. It looked like, the scripted plays the Niners had kind of worked for the most part given their limited resources. But then the Saints defense, all of a sudden, I guess after last week, they just were like, hey, we can be a lot better than we've been. And they just turned it on and they left the 49ers in the dust.
Yeah, I mean, it was encouraging in the first half to see the 49ers kind of hanging in there. But I knew what was going to happen. There was no way, at no point in the game did I think the Saints were actually going to lose. I do think the injury to Drew Brees, it just comes there's never a good time to have your franchise future Hall of Fame quarterback get injured. But, considering that the Buccaneers are just one game behind the Saints in the NFC South, and that the Saints are in position to get the number one seed, tied with the Packers right now at the top of the NFC, you can't really afford to lose anyone right now. And so I think it's going to be, I don't know, it's you would expect that there should be a step back. They do have Taysom Hill. They do have Jameis Winston. Perhaps they can hold the fort for a while. It is encouraging that they're deciding not to put Drew Brees on the IR, which means that they're hoping to be able to get him back in 3 weeks.
Yeah, Alvin Kamara, again, proving that maybe aside from Dalvin Cook, he's the most dynamic player in the league right now. 15 yards, 2 touchdowns, 7 receptions for 83 yards, and a receiving touchdown. There's just
nothing you can do against him. There's nothing you can do against him. He's going to get the ball.
He's faster than you. He's tough. He's stronger than you think. He's a great pass catcher. I mean, he's just unbelievable. And as far as the Saints moving forward, I kind of want to pull Sean Payton aside and just say, look, listen, if you're going to put Taysom Hill as quarterback and you're going to try to trick the defense, if every time Taysom Hill gets the ball, he just takes off and runs, no one's going to think that they're not going to respect the pass anymore. I watched Taysom Hill stand in shotgun probably 7 times, and every time he just took the ball and ran straight ahead. It's the Wildcat worked for all of 6 weeks back with Cadillac Williams on the Bucs, and it has not worked since. Or the Dolphins, I think.
I was going to say, I think it was the Dolphins, yeah.
It was the Dolphins, yeah. But Taysom Hill, I mean, let him throw the ball once or twice to at least keep the defense honest. Otherwise, it seems like a really waste of time. I don't understand the Saints' offensive mindset.
To me, the answer is going to Jameis Winston. That I don't even think you mess around with Taysom Hill right now. You go to Jameis Winston, limit his opportunity to make mistakes, put the ball in Kamara's hands, and let him carry you the way Dalvin Cook carries the Vikings.
Yeah, no, I agree. And we'll see. I mean, I have a make no mistake or give me a break that pertains to this very thing right now, coming up a little bit later, but it's called a tease in the radio business. On our top 5 news stories this week, we're staying in the NFC West. The Rams, I guess, somewhat surprisingly, knock off the Seahawks, and they created what you alluded to before, a 3-way 6-3 tie at the top of the NFC. And Russell Wilson, horrible game. Wow. Yeah. Zero touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 248 meager yards.
Yeah.
DK Metcalf pick up a courtesy phone. What happened there? I mean,
Decoy Metcalf. Decoy Metcalf.
And Tyler, I don't know. There's no way to go with that without cursing with his last name. But Tyler lost it. And I don't know what happened. They're down to, Travis Homer is running the football. I don't know the Seahawks. I don't know what it is with the Seahawks and running backs. The Seahawks running backs feel like the Chargers receivers of a few years ago, where it's like Keenan Allen and Hunter Henry were injured more than they weren't. It seems like it's that way with the Seahawks running backs. These guys cannot stay healthy to save their lives.
And it feels like that way every year with it. Chris Carson has missed time every year for the last 3 seasons. Rashad Penny, their first-round pick from a couple years ago, hasn't played all year. Travis Homer, I think maybe perhaps that's what's happening with the Seahawks, because that's just an inexplicable performance by Russell Wilson, who was just torching everyone. And I think that through the first 5 weeks of the season, they were 5-0. Russell Wilson was going to cruise to the MVP. The Seahawks were going to win the Super Bowl. And ever since their Week 6 bye, they've gone 1-3. And what's most troubling about this last loss is because the weeks before you could say, "Oh, well, the defense. What are you supposed to do? You let the Bills score 44 points. What are you supposed to do? The defense, you can't score that. You can't force your offense to score that often." Their offense only put up 16 points or 17. Yeah, 16 points. You can't expect your defense to hold the team in the modern day NFL. You can't expect to win a game like that. And so this is really troubling. They do get a quick bounce back. They're at home in basically a must win. So we'll see what they can do. But it was a pretty troubling performance.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, Russell Wilson, we're letting Russ cook. It sounds like, maybe it's some of that food's going a little bad.
Starting to burn.
Yeah, he's trying to, with that defense, it's like Russ has to be, the chef, the busboy, the host, the bartender, the server, and everything. I mean, that, Jamal Adams looked good, but they just got embarrassed. And
well, the other thing, the Rams suck. The Rams sacked 6 times. Yeah. So that's the other thing. It's hard to be a good quarterback when you're constantly on your back. I don't know how many other times he was knocked down or hurried. I'm sure it was a lot more than 6. So that the Rams, you have to really credit the Rams defense for kind of putting the pressure on Russell Wilson. And I mean, it's not rocket science. That's the formula to beat any quarterback. Get pressure on him and put him on the ground.
Yeah, and it certainly is a little easier to do that when you have the best defensive player we've seen in a long time in Aaron Donald, just destroying offensive schemes. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if this is a sign that the Seahawks are not as good as we thought, or the Rams are better than we thought.
I would go on the Seahawks are not as good as we thought. They got off to that 5-0 start, and they just haven't been the same since the bye week. And I'm not sure if it's just as simple as not having a healthy Chris Carson. Maybe it's just that simple. Maybe he meant that much to the team, because that's really what's kind of coincided with it. He hasn't really played in, I think, 3 weeks when they haven't been winning.
Yeah, I would tend to lean towards the Rams not, being better than we expected. I mean, we saw them, like a couple teams get embarrassed by the Miami Dolphins, who apparently don't look like a fluke anymore. But, I think when the Dolphins prove that if the Rams have to put it all on Jared Goff's shoulders or arm, that they're not as good. But when they get a game like they did against the Seahawks, where Malcolm Brown and Darrell Henderson are both, running up and down the field, all of a sudden that play action, that seems like where Goff lives is in that play action pass. And he's exceptional when it comes to play action. But
absolutely.
All right, moving on. Top 5 news stories, NFL. We're at 1, 2, 3. We're at 4. This one is crazy. The Ravens inexplicably lose to the Patriots 23-17. If you think back a year ago when the Patriots were going into, or the Ravens went into Foxborough, and the Ravens embarrassed the 8-0 Patriots at the time, and they just put a beat down on Tom Brady and the Patriots. All of a sudden, the Patriots come in and win against Lamar Jackson with Cam Newton and Jacoby Myers throwing for a touchdown. Like, what? I don't even know what to make of this game. Is it a fluke, or is it are the Ravens just kind of falling apart at the seams in front of our eyes?
Well, it's probably somewhere in between. I don't know if they're falling apart at the seams. It just, I feel like a broken record, because we've been saying this every single week. Their offense is predictable, and it's just very limited. I'm watching the game last night. Lamar Jackson can't completely. It seems like if the throw is more than 10 yards down the field, he has almost no chance of completing it. They are overly committed to running the ball, and it just, I don't know. There's no explosive plays. I don't know what to point to when you look at last year and you compare it to this year. The only thing I can think of, and I hate to always put it on the quarterback, but if you look at Lamar Jackson's numbers, he's not the same player he was last year. His completion percentage is down. His interception percentage is up. His yards per attempt is down. Even his rushing yards per game and per attempt are down. I'm not sure what has happened, but he's not playing as well as he did last year. My only guess is that the league is caught up and he hasn't adjusted.
I think I've said this before. I'll say it again. It feels more and more like Lamar Jackson is turning into kind of a one-trick pony, and teams aren't afraid of him anymore. They still respect him, but nobody's like last year. The teams looked like they were afraid of him and his speed, and it just outside of Mark Andrews, I don't see anybody on that receiving core that's even scary. I mean, Hollywood Brown's good sometimes. Willie Snead is a cast away from the Saints. I mean, there's nobody on there that's that would have Des Bryant on the practice squad. I mean, what?
But it just seems like they need a bunch of possession receivers because he can't complete passes down the field. The whole purpose of getting Hollywood Brown is so you can hit him with these quick strike chunk yardage plays. If you can't complete a pass at 20 yards, then there's no point in having Hollywood Brown even on your team. It just seems like all he wants to do, all he can do right now is complete these little short slant routes, and that's why short passes in the middle of the field, and that's why Mark Andrews is the one who gets targeted. But he's not even really having great games. He just happens to be right where Lamar likes to throw it.
Yeah, I mean, they do need somebody somebody who can take a slant and go 50 yards because it's not happening right now. And Mark Ingram does not look like the same player he was last year. I mean, that defense looks pretty good still. Humphreys and Peters and Calais Campbell. I mean, they're all solid, but they can't do it.
The thing that worries me about the Ravens right now is that if you look at the playoff picture, and I know we're going to be talking about that a lot, but if you look at the playoff picture right now as it stands heading into Week 11, the Ravens are clinging to the number 7 seed right now. They have their last playoff team. Their next 2 games are against the Titans and the Steelers. So now we know the Titans lost this past week, but the Titans are 6-3. They're a quality football team. The Steelers are undefeated. It's quite possible that in 2 weeks we could be looking at the Ravens as not in the playoffs.
Which, going into this week, I mean, this year, I mean, nobody
thought that.
Would have thought that for sure. I guess we'll see. But number 5 on our top 5 news stories of the week, and this one's a little delayed, but we saw the Colts beat the Titans on Thursday night, and the Colts are in the division lead. I mean, that's 3 losses in 4 games for the Titans. Phillip Rivers looked not like old man River like we've seen. He had 308 yards and touchdown. I mean, he looked solid. I don't know if he looked
okay.
Great. He looked not like a detriment to the team. How about that? I don't know if that's quite a compliment.
That's kind of a backhanded compliment.
It is, but it's the truth. I mean, it didn't look like he was the problem, and winning solves everything, I guess. But the Titans seem like they're on kind of a skid here. They're on a little bit of a slide, and I'm not sure again if it's the Titans. Maybe we're overestimating the Titans after a couple of those big wins. They were 5-0, and then they got smacked around by the Steelers. And then
I have no idea. No idea what's going on with the Titans. You can take a look at their early season schedule. Perhaps they were playing some cupcake matchups. I will say this: when they went into the game against the Steelers, you and I have talked about this during the podcast, and we were saying that the Titans had the wins that they did have, like some of the wins they had just escaped with the win against the Jaguars. They just escaped with the win against the Vikings. There was another team that they had no business competing with them that they just escaped with a win. And perhaps when they're playing against teams that are kind of on their like elite or good to elite teams, maybe they just can't hang because it wasn't particularly close on Thursday night. It was a very easy victory. And the Colts, they've won 3 of their last 4, and I think you said it perfectly. When Rivers is not asked to be great, it's very similar to Jared Goff in a way. When Rivers is not asked to be great, just asked to be okay. Just be okay. Don't kill us. Make a few plays here and there, but we don't need you to play like an MVP. Then it seems like they can get some wins this way, and we'll see.
I thought that he should look at like what Alex Smith was on the 49ers and then on the Chiefs. Obviously, Phillip Rivers can't run the way Alex Smith could back then, but just don't lose the game. Just do enough. And Nyheim Hines looked great again. 70 rushing yards, a touchdown, 5 receptions, a receiving touchdown. And then Michael Pittman, it's nice to see him off the IR and, out of the rookie wide receiver out of USC. 7 receptions, 101 yards. I mean, he looked stellar. I mean, T.Y. Hilton is nice to see him back on the field at least. I don't know he didn't really have a great game, but at least with, that kind of 1-2 punch, maybe that's what Rivers needed, is just another receiving threat.
Well, I think also the receiving threat and just the running game has really improved. It's weird. Ever since they've gone away from Jonathan Taylor, it seems like they've been playing better. The run, like Wilkins and Nyheim Hines seem to be better than Jonathan Taylor, which I don't think anyone would have thought that heading in.
No, absolutely not. But, I mean, we'll see. I mean, it's going to be interesting. To tell you that whole division, AFC South is. I mean, it's never pretty, but at least it's going to be competitive this year. Unless, well, at least at the top. I mean, there's going to be competition at the bottom for who's worse. But
I'm actually feeling a little vindicated because I picked the Colts to win the division, and early in the year that was not looking good.
Yeah,
and so I'm very happy at least that it's at least a competent pick now, even if it doesn't turn out to be correct.
Yeah, and those are our top 5 news stories of the week. We had some other considerations: the Packers over the Jaguars. I mean, that was interesting. We can talk a little more about that later. The Giants over the Eagles, not super exciting. The stat of the week, though, does come from that Giants-Eagles game, by the way. And I saw this over the weekend, and I wish I could give credit to who I heard it from, but I don't remember. I think it might have been NFL.com. The Giants win over the Eagles this week was the first Giants win against a division opponent not from Washington, D.C. since 2016.
Wait, what?
Yeah. The Giants have not beaten a divisional opponent other than the Redskins since 2016.
Wow.
I couldn't believe it. I was like,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's like one of those stats I'm gonna have when we're done here. I'm gonna have to check that because that's just.
Feel free to fact check. I reserve the right to be wrong, but I don't think I am.
Oh, it sounds right because I'm like I can't picture any game that they won. I can't be like, oh, what about that game? Yeah. It sounds like it's accurate. It's just unbelievable. It's really what it boils down to.
So, all right, we have to take a break, but first, I feel like we should probably get our highlight and low light out of the way, because it relates more to football, and we have to come back and we're going to talk NBA. So let's maybe keep it all together, and just knock out our highlight of the week, low light of the week, and with a little more lesson that we learned. And my highlight of the week actually pertains to that aforementioned Washington football team. Alex Smith making his first start in I don't know how many days, some crazy amount of days, and played well. They lost what was ended up being a great game by 2 seemingly hapless teams, but the Lions finally didn't give one away at the very end. But Alex Smith, I think 390 yards. He's still a good quarterback. I mean, he's working with kind of limited options, but I was very impressed, and I was so happy to see him out there and just performing and not being afraid and playing like he used, the Alex Smith of old.
Yeah, I made a bold prediction last week saying that I expected the Washington football team to win this division and kind of ride the Alex Smith train, kind of a Hollywood story. I'm starting to feel like maybe that was more wishful thinking than anything else, but still, I was impressed. Yeah, even before, like in the game the game that he got in the week before, his arm strength is still there. He still has the same arm talent. I think they're going to be a better team with him at quarterback.
I agree.
All right. Well, my highlight of the week, I just want to talk about Ronald Jones for a second. Here's a running back for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers who, heading into the seat, it seemed like they were doing anything to not have him. They draft Keyshawn Vaughn. They go out and sign LaShawn McCoy. Then they go out. Then they go out and sign Leonard Fournette after he gets cut from the Jaguars, and he basically looked like he lost his job a week or two ago, and then he comes out today, on Sunday, fumbles in the second carry, like on the first drive of the game, and then breaks the game open with a 98-yard touchdown run, 22 carries, 192 yards, and a touchdown. And I know that this is not our moral lesson, but this is one of the things that came to me is like if at first you do not succeed, try again. Yeah. This is a guy who's been knocking on the door. They've been trying to kick him out of Tampa Bay, and I'm very happy for him. I'm just excited to see how good this Bucs team can become if they can get an identity in the running game.
I agree, and there was a stat of the week that I couldn't use it this week, but it was for last week. Last week, the Bucs attempted to rush the ball. They rushed the ball 5 times, which is the lowest in NFL history ever. Yeah. That is insane. So it was nice to see them. I guess obviously they kind of took that to heart and probably heard about it all week. So it was nice to see them kind of change it up because I think that's what they need to do. Start with a run and then open it up to all those great pass catchers because you're not gonna win in December and January by just being a high flying throw the ball offense.
Absolutely,
you have to run the ball. My low light of the week is we talked about this briefly. The Packers almost losing to the Jacksonville Jaguars at home, and I understand boomer size and that's why they play the game. But the Packers, I watched that game and it felt like they were just playing down to their competition, and they're playing against Jake Luton. I mean, who? James Robinson is a legit running back, but the Packers I don't know what the problem was. They should have annihilated the Jaguars.
Shouldn't have been close.
They were very close to losing that game, and I understand that they still won, but that was as close to a win feeling like a loss as I've seen in a while. So Packers, get your act together, man. Come on.
And if they had been playing, if the Jaguars had Gardner Minshew out there, or even a halfway competent quarterback, no offense to Jake Luton, it was his first start, or second start. What are you going to expect? But he just, because they had a chance to win that game at the end and threw it away with an interception, I believe, or something along those lines. So they're just very fortunate to escape with that win. In the win column, it'll look like they're 7-2, but that was a close one. Absolutely, good call there. My low light of the week, it's time to stop making excuses for Carson Wentz. This entire season, we've been watching him play like garbage. Let's just call it what it is. We've been watching him play like doo-doo out there. And every week, he doesn't have his options. Zach Ertz is hurt. He doesn't have anyone at wide receiver. I don't want to hear it. He has better weapons, or at least just as good weapons as Daniel Jones, who outplayed him yesterday or on Sunday. So I'm just tired of hearing the excuses for Carson Wentz. He's got 12 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. He's making $32 million a year. The Eagles are 3-5-1, and he is probably the largest reason why he has been terrible. And that's it. I have nothing else to say. He's just been terrible, and I'm tired of the excuses.
I mean, I am one of those people that was making excuses for him early on, and I have to say I think you're right. I mean, we saw Miles Sanders was out there, Boston Scott was out there, Fulgham is looking like a true starting wide receiver in the NFL. I mean, they have Dallas Goedert back. Zach Ertz is still hurt, but I don't know what the problem is. It's hard to tell watching that game. I mean.
I can think is that maybe he's not fully back from his injury. Like he was injured. I think he had back surgery last year or the year before that or something like that. Perhaps he's not fully recovered. I don't know. I'm not sure what else.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good. He's not doing. His stats are just embarrassing so far this year.
Yeah,
and
they're gonna mess around and lose that division to the Giants or the Redskins.
Yeah, and they scored 17 points against the Giants. I mean, that's pretty bad. And the Giants look like, I don't know, they remind me of the Dolphins of last year. They don't have a lot of talent, but they're making the most of what they have. And I guess Matt Rule should get some credit for that because they play hard. They almost beat the Bucs. They beat the Eagles resoundingly, and they're on the uptick. And speaking of which, that takes us to our moral lesson of the week, and is it as it pertains to the Miami Dolphins that we just talked about. And it does not matter how slowly you go, as long as you do not stop. And that is from Confucius.
Ooh.
Miami Dolphins are 6-3, and last time they had a legit winning record was 4 years ago, 2016, 2017 season. They went 10-6. And, they've been through some turbulent times. They went through the he who should not be named, Adam Gase, Voldemort years. And, they went through to go through that, but they didn't give up. I mean, they kind of gave up, but they didn't really give up. Brian Flores comes in like Harry Potter and waves his magic wand, and all of a sudden, the Dolphins, offense, defense, and special teams look like a legit playoff team at basically, a year and a half removed from being the worst team in the league. So good for them. They haven't stopped. They haven't given up, and I'm really excited to see what their ceiling is moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm expecting the Dolphins to make the playoffs and maybe even challenge for a win. They're a legit team, and I think they're kind of flying under the radar right now.
Yeah, well, not too much anymore though, because they're putting some teams away that are starting to open some eyes. But
if they happen to get a win the coming week, they are tied for first place in the division. So
crazy.
Imagine that.
Oh wow, this is 2020, a season like no other.
Yep.
All right, we got to take a break. We're going to come back, and we have to switch gears because it's the NBA is right around the corner, and that's exciting. We have some trade news, some off-season chatter, and things like that. So the draft is literally days away. So stick around, and we're going to come right back on the Benchwarmerz podcast.
If you're sick with COVID-19 or think you might have it, take steps to help protect other people from getting sick. Stay home except to get medical care. Call the doctor before visiting. Separate yourself from others who live with you. Wear a cloth face covering to protect others. Cover your coughs and sneezes with a tissue and clean your hands right away. Avoid sharing items with other people in your home. This includes things like towels and bedding. Be sure dishes are washed in hot water or the dishwasher before anyone else uses them. Stay aware of how you feel. If you start to have difficulty breathing or if you're worried about your health, call your doctor. For more tips, visit cdc.gov.
Welcome back to the Benchwarmers podcast, where being all talk is actually a good thing. Now, back to the action. Or talk, I guess.
Welcome back to the program, everybody. I am still Lou Ruggieri. That is still Jose Ortiz, and this is still the Benchwarmers podcast. Hopefully you're following us along on either the iHeartRadio podcasting app, Amazon Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Play. You can follow us along on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at the BW Pod, or the Benchwarmers podcast. You can email us, love mail, hate mail, the Benchwarmers podcast at yahoo.com. Benchwarmers with a Z. Show's moving right along. We covered our top 5 news stories from the NFL Week 10. We touched on our highlight and lowlights of the week, a little moral lesson we took away from Confucius. We have our Week 11 picks and our Week 10 recap picks for a little bit later. Our favorite game, Make No Mistake or Give Me a Break, coming up at the top of next hour. But first, a little move away from the NFL talk, and the NBA is right around the corner. And they're starting a week before Christmas, which is super exciting, and the draft is 2 days away. I mean, we record this on Monday. The draft is literally 2 days away. I had no idea until you said something before. I thought it was I knew it was soon. I didn't realize it was that soon. And I mean, we can go in all kinds of different directions. Chris Paul is being traded from the Thunder. So where Jose would you like to start in this NBA hot stove?
Well, let's just start with the Chris Paul trade, because I thought it was very interesting I've been going back and forth on it on the entire time, because first I was like, well, why would you give up a first round pick and young talent to get Chris Paul?
Chris Paul to the Suns, by the way. For anybody that wasn't paying attention.
Oklahoma Thunder, Oklahoma City Thunder to the Suns. Why would Suns give up a first round pick in 2022, a young talent, just to get Chris Paul? And I don't think anyone, I mean, there's always surprises, but I don't think anyone thinks that the team or the new mega super team of DeAndre Ayton, Devin Booker, and Chris Paul are going to really legitimately challenge for the NBA championship. I don't think that anyone's going to have that thought. Right now, they just look like a really good playoff team. Maybe they're thinking since they went 8-0 in the bubble, the Phoenix Suns did go 8-0 in the bubble when there was the restart, but they missed the playoffs. I just don't understand why they go after that. But then I started thinking about it. It's like, well, there is some value to making the playoffs. If you're a team, if you're a franchise that hasn't been in the postseason, and I can't remember last time Phoenix was in the postseason, probably when they had Steve Nash.
Probably.
There might have been a year or two in there I'm forgetting about, but it's probably then. If you're a team that hasn't been in the postseason, we talked about getting culture, having culture changes, building a culture of winning in your organization. Maybe that's what they're trying to do. Maybe they think they're better than the Thunder were, and then you add Chris Paul. Hey, maybe they can get to the second round of the NBA playoffs. That's the one thing. And then it's a kind of a no-brainer for me. If you're the Thunder, you get young talent and a 2022 pick, and plus you get to move Chris Paul's contract. That's easy. So
yeah, I mean, Devin Booker was the Michael Jordan of the bubble. We heard 1,000 times, but I agree with you. I don't necessarily think this is the best fit. I think the news about the Chris Paul trade is not the biggest news to me. Was not that the Chris Paul was going to the Suns. The biggest news to me was that Chris Paul was not going to either the Bucks or the Lakers, or even the Heat, for that matter. I thought that Chris Paul could have been a pivotal piece, especially for the Bucks, who are just desperate for some kind of just strong-willed leadership and another scoring option, because Greek Freak is just floundering there on his own, on an island, just trying to do everything, and you can't have your 7-foot center being your point guard. Like, it doesn't work. So you need someone to facilitate. And I don't think there's a better pure point guard in the league than Chris Paul. And that to me was a bigger news story by him, the where Chris Paul didn't go rather than where he did go.
Well, we don't really know what other teams offered. Maybe it just was a matter of because the Bucks are going to have a better draft pick probably than, say, the Phoenix Suns. So perhaps it's just about what they can offer. But yeah, I would have, if I were a team that was close to winning, I would have definitely gone after Chris Paul. And I think the Lakers is another good point. Like, we saw how good they were when they had Rajon Rondo out there. So when you have a point guard who can play defense, by the way, and run an offense and can score pretty well, that's a boon. I am surprised that more teams didn't go hard after them, although we may not know the full story.
That's true. I mean, I think that the Bucks, they're in win now mode. So I was kind of surprised that they didn't. What do you want? You want future draft picks? Great, because we want to win now. So yeah, I mean, that would have been my thinking. But I mean, who knows? Maybe you're right. Maybe there's more to it.
If I'm the Bucks right now, I'm strongly considering doing everything I can to go get James Harden right now. I know you've been paying attention. Both James Harden and Russell Westbrook have said that they want out, or are hinting that they want out of Houston. There's no Mike D'Antoni. Daryl Morey's gone. They're kind of concerned about the direction of the franchise, and rightly so. Their clock to win time is running out on both Russell Westbrook and James Harden. So if I were the Bucks, that would be something I was looking at to try and. I mean, if I could get both of them, I guess that would be okay. But more James Harden than Russell Westbrook. Curious your thoughts on that.
James Harden, to me, I feel like, I mean, Harden, it's hard to say that he wouldn't be a good addition to the Bucks. I just don't know. Maybe it's just my bias against Harden's game. I think that Harden, I think I saw a stat. I wish I wrote it down, but the Rockets last year were I think they were top 5 in scoring, and they were 29th in assists. And wow. Not coincidentally, that's James Harden is just, everybody stands around and watches him, and that's a problem. Russell Westbrook, another stat that I saw was he set a career high in field goal percentage, not coincidentally that he also took the least amount of three-pointers he's taken in his career. So, Russell Westbrook's he's a very specific type of player, and I feel like he needs a system where his attributes can be used properly. He's not a shooter. You can't put him on this small ball. We're just going to take 27 3-pointers, no matter how many we miss them, in every quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, I'm glad to see that, Mike D'Antoni and that whole system. Mike D'Antoni's system doesn't work. It works in the regular season. It doesn't work in the postseason. We've seen that how many times now? Daryl Morey, by the way, fun fact. I saw this, I think on NBA.com a few weeks ago. Do you know that the amount of money that was approximated that he lost the NBA by making that one tweet a year ago in the offseason?
Oh, the one about Hong Kong or China or something like that? I have no idea. No, that's another stat of the week. Let's go.
They estimated that Daryl Morey cost the NBA $200 million with one tweet.
Wow. How does he still have a job?
How does he still have a life? I don't know. I'm surprised somebody wasn't like, hey, man, 200 million. Maybe let's take your phone away forever and chop your hands off. But yeah, just fun little things I've heard along the way. But, Harden, I don't know. Harden, to me, I guess, would fit on the Bucks. I mean, I don't think he's not a Laker. He would destroy the Heat's chemistry. Westbrook might work with the Greek Freak, maybe. I don't know. I don't know where those guys fit in at this point.
But here's the thing to me. It's not really about where. First of all, yeah, you're right. They probably aren't a perfect fit there, especially with the system that they're currently running in Milwaukee. But this is my thinking on it. The Bucks are desperate to keep Giannis. They have to do something. What are you going to go out and sign Gordon Hayward? Or are you going to go get DeMar DeRozan? There's not really that marquee free agent available that's really going to move the meter. Like, you may as well just keep the guys that you have if you're going to go out and get Gordon Hayward. DeMar DeRozan might be an improvement. But either way, I just feel like of all the players you can get, who's going to have the best chance of really moving the meter for your team other than Russell Westbrook and James Harden? Maybe it's about Giannis going to Houston. I don't know. But it just feels like I don't know who else. If he's going to stay there, you have two stars. We can debate if they're superstars or they're stars or whatever. But you have two stars who are like, just they still have skills. They have the ability to help you get to the next level. I don't know. I think it's a risk worth taking. It's a gamble worth taking.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're the Bucks, you need to add something, because you're right. You do need to keep Giannis there, and I think we've seen enough where
you have to at least have to try.
Yeah, I mean, Chris Middleton is not doing it. I mean, he might be a good third option, but he's not. I think he's proven that he's not a consistent number 2 option on that team. And like I said before, you can't have Giannis being your point guard, your center, your only scorer, and it doesn't work. I mean, it works in the regular season, but it's come playoff time. That's a real easy system to figure out and defeat, as we saw the Miami Heat put the screws to them, and the Raptors last year too. I mean, it's just we have a pretty good sample size, so they have to add. Maybe Harden is the answer. I don't know, or it might be the draft. Might be the answer too. The draft is on this Wednesday, which is 2 days from now. I feel like after Zion took the entire draft excitement with him last year, and I forgot that the draft is we have LaMelo Ball and maybe James Wiseman. I don't know is there anything that you're looking forward to in this draft that's literally a day and a half away?
Well, I'm going to be honest. I don't know a lot about the players either, and I think it's because there was no college basketball this past year. There was no March Madness. There was no chance for us to really get to know these guys, if you will. And so to me, the two things I'm watching, one, what does Golden State do at the number 2 pick? They basically have a championship level team, and now they're going to add a potential superstar as a number 2 pick. Like that to me is probably the number 1 storyline. And then the other thing I'm looking at, the Boston Celtics have 3 picks in the first round again.
That's crazy.
So I'm just, it just seems like they always find a way to find these gems and the diamonds in the rough. I wouldn't be surprised if we see someone else get traded from their team and they end up with more picks next year. But they have 3 first-round picks. I'm very excited to see what kind of talent they can bring in.
Yeah, I feel like Danny Ainge and Jerry West are kind of the same. It's like if, like you said, we said off the air, if Danny Ainge calls you for a trade or Jerry West calls you with a trade, hang up the phone immediately, because you're gonna get fleeced. and you're going to get robbed before you put the phone down, and you're going to feel good about it too. That's what's screwed up. I mean, my God.
Yeah. Stop making deals with these people. Like, come on.
Jerry West got Kobe Bryant for Vlade Divac. Like, oh God. So for anybody like us that didn't know, to run down the top 10 in the draft picks, the Timberwolves are number 1, the Warriors are 2, Hornets are 3, Bulls are 4, Cavs are 5, Hawks are 6, Pistons have the number 7 pick, the Knicks have the number 8 pick, not that it matters, the Wizards have the number 9 pick, and the Suns are 10th. So
it feels like the Knicks are cursed, man. Like you can't even get the number 1 pick. Like, I don't know who I'm not saying it's that player, but like last year they had a chance to get Zion Williamson. They end up with, I think, the 3rd pick or something like that. It just feels like, I don't know, man. I just feel bad because they need a franchise changing player, and you don't usually get that.
They need an ownership changing owner. It starts the top down. It is James Dolan is the problem. It's not the New York Knicks. I mean, it's a trickle down effect. It's systemic, and James Dolan. I don't know what Adam Silver has. He works for the owners, so I don't know if he can be, get the other guys and say, look, this guy's killing our entire world. I mean, the New York Knicks should be, a destination, and now they're just they're a punchline. Yeah. So eventually they'll figure it out, I guess. But I mean, I don't see anything on the horizon for the New York Knicks. So, but that'll do it for this little NBA. I'm excited to see, like you said, the Warriors. That's going to be a lot of mock drafts have them picking James Wiseman. So we'll see.
That's what I'm worried about them picking, because he feels an obvious need for them at the center position.
Yeah.
And it's just scary. It's just scary to me. If he's a legit player, that's very scary.
I was thinking, what if LaMelo falls to number 2? Do the Warriors take LaMelo Ball? Does he fit on that team? I don't know if he fits as well, but
I don't think so.
The Warriors seem like they have a way to just make use of whoever's there. Because I mean, you would have said, well, Kevin Durant didn't really fit in, but I guess maybe it's sort of apples to oranges, because Kevin Durant was the best player in the world for a little while.
Yeah, you can add 30 points a game to basically any team, and it'll fit in. But to me, a guard, especially at that high in the draft, I mean, they may go with the best player available approach since they have such a good roster. But I would just think you take a center, build your starting rotation, and then you take a guard in the 2nd round or something like that, and build your bench that way. But because if you take a guard in the 1st round, he's going to be on your bench. He's not starting for you, because you're not benching Klay Thompson or Steph Curry. So why are you taking a guard? Unless
somebody gets hurt again. But
yeah, fair enough.
I guess we'll see. So yeah, the NBA is a month behind us, and it's a month away from us. So that's really exciting, and we have at least the draft to look forward to. So accelerated season coming up. It's very, very exciting. All right, that'll do it for hour number 1. We have to come back. We take a break. Come back. Hour 2, we have to go over our Week 10 picks, our put your money where your mouth is sports bet of last week, make our picks for Week 11 already. But coming up next, we have our favorite game, Make No Mistake or Give Me a Break. And we're going to make some statements and see where we land on those. So follow us along. Like I said, iHeartRadio podcasting app, Amazon, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at the BW Pod, the Benchwarmerz Podcast at yahoo.com. If you'd like to email us, feel free. So stick around, and we're going to come right back with hour number 2 on the Benchwarmers.
Thanks for listening to the Benchwarmers Podcast. Follow along with us on the Benchwarmers Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. And don't forget to review us on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts.